Always a pleasure to welcome in Stephen Ellis, who is boots on the ground in Ottawa for the 2025 World Juniors, covering it like a blanket for us over at dailyfaceoff.com. And Stephen, let's start with the big result. Canada losing to Latvia in a shootout, and it obviously has led to quite a lot of reaction, and whether that's overreaction or not from Canadian hockey fans, I guess is part of the conversation here. So let me ask you, was that just a random one-off historic upset, or was that a comment on the quality of this Canadian team?
Well, first off, it looks like we're going to have about 5,000 people here for a live taping of this show. As you can see, people walking in and out. You might even see some familiar faces, former NHLers. But to me, when you look at that Canada-Latvia game, Canada dominated the puck possession. They had 57 shots on net. Jack Ivakovic looked really good in net. But you saw the very glaring issues out there. They were playing to the perimeter. They were not very creative. Their power play was a disaster. I think they took 6 penalties in that game. So right now, they've got the most penalties in this tournament. Their penalty kill is doing really well. But you saw against Latvia in those last 10 minutes where they allowed 2 goals down a man. I think the thing there is, as much as I love great stories like that, I've seen Latvia win the World Championship against Canada. If you redo that game, I don't think Canada's losing. That's a group that has a ton of skill. They got to be able to put it together, though, and the lines, like, I've made an argument that if you could fire a coach mid-tournament, and we've seen Finland do that, but Canada probably should have considered it. They were never going to do that in Ottawa where Dave Cameron coaches, but I just don't understand these line combinations.
I don't understand the roster construction. Like, to me, you could say whatever you want about Dave Cameron. The quality of players that Canada left on the cutting room floor, by virtue of the arrogance with which they construct their entire organization, to me is why Canada lost to Latvia. There's too many good players sitting at home watching.
Yeah, I was at selection camp. I can tell you Zane Perek did not have a good selection camp. Should he still have been on this team? Probably. I still think that his dynamicism and the way he moves the puck, you would have won him there. Michael Misa, absolutely no reason to not bring him even to selection camp. He should have been there. But at the same time, they sat Carson Rakoff, who was a 50-goal scorer in the OHL. They brought Luca Pinelli, who, maybe a lot of people are looking at this saying, why is he here? Well, he's on pace for 50 goals in the OHL too. So they do have these options. But yeah, they did leave more talent at home than obviously any other country, and it's hurting them right now.
Yeah, so what do you make of their response then? Because they do bounce back against Germany, but I'm still concerned with their lack of 5-on-5 scoring that ultimately in the end might hurt them.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation where you've got a goalie who's got back-to-back shutouts, and everyone's still concerned about this team. And Carter George has been great. He was great again last night. But what we saw there was a team that just could not connect on their passes. And Canada, again, all the skill they've got, there's no question about the amount of skill this team has and the talent. It's just they're not gelling. And a lot of that, to me, is you look at the line combinations. Carson Rakoff and Porter Martone are line mates with the Brampton Steelheads. They're on pace for something like both over 50 goals this year. Why have they not played a minute together? Why have they not been in the lineup at the same time? Why did it take so long to put Sam Dickinson, probably the best offensive defenseman in the OHL, why did it take so long to put him on the power play? Gavin McKenna, he's not scoring. Hey, let's stop putting him with Luca Pinelli. Unfortunately, Luca Pinelli's not a guy that's going to finish those plays there for him the way that they need him to. So still a lot of questions with that team, but I think what we did see was, at least in the power play, a bit more of a boost and good goaltending.
Okay, so I'm rubbing my hands together. We have a delicious New Year's Eve matchup. U.S., Canada, the traditional New Year's Eve festivities. And you've got a U.S. team that's coming off of a loss to Finland. They played on back-to-back. They took care of business against Latvia one day after Latvia was celebrating probably the biggest win in their federation's history, potentially, knocking off Canada. But the U.S. loses to Finland. So what do you make of this game, and how does the U.S. look relative to Canada so far in this tournament?
Well, that game against Latvia outshot the Americans for a good majority of that game, and that was a tired Latvian team going up against a rested American team. My big concern about that group heading in was their scoring depth, and I know they scored 10 goals against the Americans, but against Germany, but they still had all their big stars going out there. They need their guys, like just their bottom six, to go out there and produce, and we haven't really seen that necessarily. I think the one big issue for the Americans, though, is Trey Augustine. This was the X factor. This is the guy they needed to go out there and be perfect. He's allowed 8 goals in his 2 starts this tournament. That's not good. The game against Germany, a few of those he would have definitely liked to have back. And yesterday, Finland just kept shooting glove side. But again, when Trey Augustine's at his best, the Americans have the best goalie in the tournament. And when the top line, the BC line, looks as good as we know it can for the Americans, they're unstoppable. So I'm expecting this to be the game everyone's hoping for, as tight and as exciting, because both of them are flawed, but both of them are good enough to make up for it.
Oh, flawed, skilled hockey. That's what the World Juniors is all about. That's when you get your best games. Let's quickly flip over to Group B, Steven. Czechia, 3-0 to start. Are they making you rethink your power rankings a little bit here?
Group B is not a good group. Let's just be very clear about that. Switzerland's not a good team. Kazakhstan, a bit of a disaster of a team out there. The game against Slovakia, they took advantage of a Slovak team that just seemed to be kind of asleep. The big question is going to be at that game against Sweden. Right now you look at the goal differential and the Czechs look really good because of that massive win against Kazakhstan. I think Sweden's a slightly better team, but when it comes to the Czechs, it's a group that a lot of these guys have been to the Holinka finals in the last 2 years. They've had some good runs at the U18s. They need to go out there and just put it together. They need that scoring to work. And for me, the key for that was 2 players, Edward Shala, who had 2 goals yesterday, and Michael Rabel, the goalie, who's been lights out. So as long as those guys are thriving, the Czechs are in a good spot, but we'll see how it goes in the crossover round.
Yeah, the crossover is going to be fascinating with some of the stunning results we've had so far. And if we get a few more, who knows what some of these quarterfinal matchups could be. Steven, you'll have it all covered for us at dailyfaceoff.com. Enjoy the hockey today, and we'll chat with you a little bit later on in the tournament.
Yep, thanks, guys.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.